That shows them on the road 18 times with the Hawks at home 18 times. There are some important players who continue to be out of this Leaf lineup. Iafrate and Lehman and Marois. We continue to mention Wendell Clark, but the Blackhawks are without more than just Denny Savard. For more on that, let's go to the broadcast booth and meet Eric Thomas and Harry Neal.
Thank you, Dave. Savard is out, Thomas is out, and Wilson is out, but more and more over the month, the Hawks' play has improved. More and more starting to look like a Mike Keenan coached hockey club, Harry.
Well, I'm sure Coach Keenan can see the light at the end of the improvement tunnel. The work ethic on his team is up. The goals against are down. The special teams have improved. I guess the question is, without Savard, Wilson, and Thomas, can the improvement continue?
It's not going to be easy for the Leafs. 18 games away from home, and they've only won 7 at the Gardens all year.
Worse than that, they've only won 1 of their last 13 road games. But, Eric, it's quite simple. If the Leafs want to make the playoffs, they have to start doing something on the road, and tonight's the night to start.
Maybe you can hear it in the background. You can't talk about a hockey game in this building without talking about the national anthem.
Well, Wayne Mesmer's the soloist of the national anthem here, and he, with a great classical music background, will approach the Star-Spangled Banner with the same intensity Placido Domingo would take on an aria from Carmen. And I want you to listen carefully to the anthem after the next commercial, because after the first verse, Tarzan could be singing it, and the fans here won't know the difference. He and Nancy Faust and the great pipe organ will start the great tradition of the game here at the Chicago Stadium.
And Wayne is set to mesmerize. You're watching Molson Leaf.
Great. It's an ever wonderful action tonight. You bet. You know, you mentioned earlier, Mike, we're so fortunate around the NHL to have the likes of Dennis Savard and Mario Lemieux, but you got to catch them on a good night. There are 80 games in a season, and very often you'll do a game every once in a while that is not their best game. Last year, I don't think we saw any of these guys really, truly at their best on a regular basis. Well, I'll tell you what, they seem to know when ESPN's coming to town this year, because we have seen Big 66 from Pittsburgh at his best. Brian Murray's called a timeout there. We've seen Wayne Gretzky at his best. We've seen Dennis Savard. They are so far ahead of any other injury year that they've had. 188 man games lost to injury. Bob Murdoch, there he is, told me before the game, he said, you know, since the beginning of the season, we have had at least 6 regulars out almost all the time. And when you take a look at their defense tonight, Keith Brown is not there. He hasn't been there since the 8th game of the season, I believe. Ben Wilson's not there. Doug Wilson now, as we mentioned, if he does come back, will be probably out until next training camp. They have, we here, lost him for the entire season, so it's been a tough year. And on Brian Murray's side, he's seen worse years injury-wise. They're reasonably healthy right now.
Wilson has had some shoulder problems, but he took a hit in Boston in early December, and he said, my whole arm went numb. Quiet crowd here tonight, and that's rare. Nancy Faust, the organist here at Chicago Stadium, that enormous, world's largest unified pipe organ, a Barton, 25 keyboards, 883 stops, and 40,000 pipes, if you know your keyboard. Now, if you don't, just keep in mind, if she cranked it up to full blast, it would have the noise of 25 brass bands, and it can blow out windows.
You bet it can. Let's say I climb around there between periods and talk to her.
There's one of the busier girls in the rink. She plays the great big pipe organ up at the one end of the Chicago Stadium, and I can tell you this, when she plays it, this booth shakes.
It does.
Boy, if you can make it to the Chicago Stadium to see a hockey game, you got to do it. It's well worth the visit.
She also plays the organ for the Chicago Cubs baseball games, too. Talented lady. Looks in that mirror up there. She can see the play in the mirror.
Rick Wilson, Bob McGill, and Mark Bergevin, 3 defensemen not noted for scoring, and scored for the Hawks. Tony McKechnie getting the Blues goal, his 14th of the year. Only Doug Gilmour has more goals. He has 15 on the season. All
is offside, and there's a minute 47 to go, and a neutral faceoff coming up.
Lockhart now out playing left wing. He started the game playing at center ice, but he's out playing left wing now. Paul Cavallini. I asked him today, I said, how come your brother went to Bowling Green, you went to Providence College? He said, I couldn't get into Bowling Green. I said, the marks? He said, no, the hockey. Providence College accepted him. Then he went to the Canadian Olympic team, and he credits that experience playing against the European competition and the coaching of Dave King of of the Canadian Olympic team as being the big reasons for his success. Meanwhile, he's just thrilled to be playing with his big brother Gino.
Third period, he's had at least one, and that just came right now.
Six skaters out there for Chicago. Face off to the right of Gosselin. Now they have trouble lining up for the face-off. 27 seconds left. 5-3 Quebec. And the draw.
Look at that stretch, the deflection, and then he's able to pull them together. But that's why Bobby Mason has always been an exciting goalie to watch. He really plays with his emotion, with his reflexes. He's sort of an ad-libber. He'll go out there and stop the puck 5 different ways on the same shot, but he gets the job done, and that's why, you know, it's so hard for non-goalie people to pick out good goalies. They don't. Hockey at its finest when these two teams play, as we look at Denis Savard, such a dominant player for the Hawks. Kills penalties, great on the power play. Just literally does it all. It's an old cliche, but that man there does it all for this team. And the good news is he's only 27. There's a shot by Brian Bellows. There again, see a low pad save. And you see there's nothing to shoot at. Bobby Mason covers the low corner so well. And then when the rebound comes back, he was a little bit out of it on the rebound, but had a lot of help there. But the Stars are starting off great on this power play. They haven't scored, but they're starting to create a lot of momentum in their favor.
Mason's never lost to the North Stars.
So the North Stars will now have their 5th power play opportunity of the game. After Chicago had enjoyed the earlier manpower advantage, it's been the North Stars out that have had a good share of playing time with the extra man.
North Stars have moved the puck well on their power play. After the penalty shot, they had a power play where they were very nervous and jumpy, but hopefully for them, after this intermission, now they can get settled down and keep moving the puck like they did in their first few tries.
3-2 with 7:07 remaining here in the second period.
You know, with all the injuries that the Hawks have had, one of the fortunate things is they've been able to keep their centermen pretty healthy. Murray's been in for most of the games, and of course Savard and also Ludzik, and that really helps. If you can keep your centermen healthy and in the games and playing well, as I mentioned, that helps 3 players, because it's the centerman that usually makes the wingers go. It's not the wingers making the centerman go, as a rule. And you've got a pretty good second-line centerman with Troy Murray, who we saw earlier.
Ball for Viveros for Broughton, and Ping makes a big save. As the Stars come close again.
Good heads-up play by Viveros and Graham. Now Viveros fakes the slap shot, then he throws it in. Dirk Graham deflects it, doesn't get it quite high enough. If that puck is up over the stick, it goes through Pang's legs.
Out to Osborne. His shot, good glove save by Bob Sauvé as Wendell Clark went charging for the net.
Well, Sauvé did this time and time again last night, and a goal by Toronto right away will put him right back in the game. Watch the stop he makes. He makes a nice stop here, quick reaction in that great big mitt, and not in the net. Now let's have another look at that power play goal by Chicago. The Savard's got it here, out to the point to Wilson. There.
Beaupre. Get a look from where Downey looks at it, down below.
See Manson and Sundstrom, and they're still jabbing. Manson really drove Patrick Sundstrom against the boards and ripped his helmet off on the check right here.
Gary, one thing that a lot of people have said about the Norris division, Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago, Toronto, Minnesota, is they play a poor brand of hockey. But one thing that they do, they hit very well. And the series between St. Louis and Chicago, Detroit and Toronto will be very physical series. The hockey, a lot of people say, isn't as good as other divisions, but as far as the physical intensity, it's very high.
There'll be some interesting playoff games again, no question about it. I think the Islanders are really hoping someone other than Washington ends up in the playoffs against them. They have seen one another so much.
Short 22 times against St. Louis and given up 2 power play goals, but they've scored 3 short-handed goals. They gave up 122 goals throughout the regular season, a new NHL record. But they've turned it around in playoff competition in that department in a big way.
This series Wednesday night in the arena.
Because Glenn didn't have too many tough shots in the first period, but he had a lot of scrambly ones in the second, and the key thing was not to let them get within 1 goal.
Dave, you do your job from, let's say, long distance, so to speak. Is it more difficult to do it that way? Obviously, the Red Wings have had a pretty good year, so it hasn't been a tough job for you, but I've seen you around in different situations, and you do a lot of talking to the goaltenders.
Well, my main thing, Mickey, is just to be aware of what's going on. I'm a firm believer myself that if someone is up in the stands watching a goalie all the time, that a goalie, well, you analyze too much, and then you try to get a goalie to play the way you played and maybe not the way the goalie is normally used to playing, and before long you've got the fellow all fouled up. So I just try to keep current on things, talk to the coaches, see if there's a problem. If the goalies have got a problem, they get in touch with me. But goalies never seem to have problems. They never get in touch with me.
I knew you'd say that. Listen, Dave, we're going to have a look at a couple of plays by one of the most exciting players in the game of hockey today, Denis Savard. Talk to the folks a little bit about how you might cover Denis Savard.
Well, he's so hard to cover because you just don't know what direction he's going to go. He's got a good shot. He's a good stick handler. Here he comes in now. When he pulls off to the side on this, I'm sure Glenn is figuring, I'm going to cut the angle, there's going to be nothing there. And then if I'm not mistaken, he slides it along. Oh, this is his reverse play.
Yes.
Well, this one was amazing. I mean, Glenn had him covered all the way, and then look at that puck just grazed the post like that. No goaltender is going to anticipate a spin-around play at that stage.
There's not much you can do with a guy like Savard. I mean, you're trying to follow him. I mean, we've talked about the defenseman. He turns inside out, and as a goaltender, basically all you can do is cover your angles and hope that he doesn't come out of his rear end with one of the moves that he usually does.
Well, and what you try to teach your goaltenders is you say, think of the fellow's option.
Penguins on the power play 1 for 4, and of course cashing in the final seconds of play in the first period. The Blackhawks were 1 for 2 in the game to date on the power play. And the shots on goal, Randy Cunningham paced away over everybody with 3, and the Penguins had 13 against Chicago's Darren Pang, and Chicago was 7. Troy Murray and Steve Larmer each with 2 apiece, and Larmer scored on both his shots against goaltender Frank Pietrangelo. We've got a 3-1 game. The Chicago Blackhawks leading Pittsburgh. Second period coming up in just a moment.